All right, I forgot the other theme of the questions, which was questions about standard deviation in general. So standard deviation measures average distance from the mean. So you can look at this from a set of data, from a graph, and I typically ask from graphs, and almost always, of course, since we can't see exactly where the data points are in a box plot, typically from a histogram or a dot plot. So looking at this, we could make a hypothesis about which of these groups is going to have the highest and the largest and the smallest standard deviation. I think we could say C, where the data is super condensed into one area, seems like it's going to have the smallest standard deviation. Now, here's where things get a little funky. If I give this question, I typically try to use graphs that are a little bit nicer than this, right? This is not the nicest data in the world to be playing with for this particular graph, but we could have reasons that we might think about these other ones. First things first, we'd want to draw out where our mean is. So this is about mean. This mean's going to get pulled slightly towards that outlier, and this mean's here. And then we're talking about like average distance from the mean. And I'm honestly not 100% sure which one might have the largest distance from the mean here. Bimodal is usually a good indicator because there's that gap right where the mean is, but we still have small tails out to the farthest points. Whereas D, at the furthest points from that, we still have big bars. We still have tall bars showing a lot of data really far away from the mean. And then B is a strong case too because B, our mean got pulled away from where the most of our data was by getting it pulled to the left by that outlier. But I'm going to guess D. I'm not going to say I actually know this answer. I don't. And I am going to actually bring us over the actual raw data. And maybe we'll look before I play with the raw data to see if I was going to say we could see if the dot plots give us more insight. But I'll just play with the data. So let's see. I'm going to say I think it was the second 8-week with that. Pretty consistent across the top. That uniform put us a lot to the two edges, even though hybrid our mean got pulled, and in the 119X we had the bimodal distribution because those bimodal distribution wasn't as far from the mean. Let's see. So summary stats on a column. I want to look at exam 1 scores. Oh, I did row stats. Summary stat column. Exam 1 scores, grouping by the section, and I really just care about standard deviation. Yeah, we can go ahead and get some more stuff if we want, but really just care about standard deviation. So look at this. My head is in the way. Come here, mouse. Looks like our standard deviation is the highest in that second 8-week class. But look, that what I said about the standard deviation, the hybrid and the 119X both had pretty high standard deviations for those two reasons. And only the 8-week had a small standard deviation. So they were close. I will never give you something that close on a test or in a knowledge check. Typically, I'll try to give you something that is pretty obvious. But in general, it's about where are the values furthest from average. So if you have a graph or some sort of display, draw where your average is and then think about where values are, which one has more values far away from average. And that's going to be your indicator of the largest standard deviation, or which one has the values closest to average, in which case your smallest standard deviation. In fact, I had a lovely thing full of standard deviation questions that I did in a workshop. So I will try to find those and provide them to you as well. But hopefully that clears up a little bit of that standard deviation stuff.